Hello everybody and welcome back to another CB Show Tunes tutorial. Now today what we're going to be getting into is how to set up an attack animation for your character. Now I've done this over and over again, and of course I've never really explained what I'm doing. Now this of course is going to be the basics, sort of like hack and slash sort of attack, to where basically you press a button and you attack, and of course if you release that button you stop attacking. Um, and of course, we'll cover how to create your idle animations and stuff like that. Now, keep in mind, if you have an animation already set up for this, that's great. Say, for instance, if you downloaded this animation or you already recreated these animations, that'd be awesome. If you don't have an animation for the game object that you're going to be animating, we're going to be using the Unity Animation tab, which is right down here. And of course, if you don't have that, then we're going to go over to the Windows and then select Animator. Or animation right there. That's what it is. Control plus 6. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how we have our setup. So if I head over into our scene view, go ahead and find our player. We have this little gun object. Now the gun object is actually what we're going to be animating inside this tutorial. So let's go ahead and select that gun. Now inside this gun right here, you're going to see a couple different animations. And if you don't have these animations, that's all right. I'll explain how you can actually put these inside your project. So simply select your project, right? Then you're going to find your folders and you're going to create a folder. Now, I have a folder called Player for all my animations and stuff like that. If you don't have a folder called Player or you don't have a folder called Animations, simply right click wherever you want it to be stored, go over to Create, and then select Folder. Once you have folder put out there, it's going to create an empty folder, and you're going to just rename it whatever you want to call it. I would call it Animations, and so on. Once you have your animations selected, you're going to go into that Animations tab. And since this is for the general idea of the player, so say for instance I wanted to create an animation for the actual game object itself, I would right click, create a folder and call it player right there for player animations. And we have a gun animation here. So basically, if you don't have this folder for a gun or a sword or whatever you're using, just double click that right there. Now, this is going to be empty at first, so what you're going to do is you're going to grab your gun. Once you have your gun selected, you're going to make sure it's the full gun, by the way. Once you have your gun selected, you're going to pretty much go over here and you're going to create an animation for it. So select the animation tab now, and it's going to be completely empty. It's going to look something like this. So once you got that, you're going to simply press create, and it will give you the option to create a name, right? So the first name that you're going to create is idle. Now idle just means that it's not going to be doing anything or not going to be doing much. So if we go over to our game view and check out what idle looks like. So that's what idle looks like for us. If you don't have this set up already, simply press this record button, and then you're going to put in the values inside the transform function over here. So if you take a look at our position, we're currently at a 0.27, a negative 0.27, and a 0.68. Then of course we can move along to 2. You're going to notice that we changed to a 0.3, a negative 0.33, and a 0.68. And of course our rotation value changes as well. Keep in mind that you have to change these values to at least one number for it to record the full set. So say for instance rotation, if it's still 0, but you want to change it into the next spot, what you're going to do is you're going to put 1, backspace 0, and then it will save it as 0. Because if you change it right here and don't change it right here, it's going to set this as this value automatically. So make sure that you do that. And of course at 4, we just put it back to its original position. So as you can see, our idle's just going to continue doing this right here. Now to create the next animation, you're going to simply select this and then create new clip. Now we have a fire clip right here, and this clip is just simply going to make a gun go back and forth. You can do whatever you want to do with it, make it do all forms of whacked out stuff if you want to, but I simply went from 0 to 20, 10 going back, 20 going forward, and so on. You could do whatever you want to do with it. And of course, lastly, we have moving. Now, moving, I had to mess around with it a little bit because I set up a crouching animation for my character, and unfortunately, how I had it originally set up, it was, you know, off a little bit. So I had to change the moving animation a little bit. But as you can see, just like we did before with the fire animation and the idle animation, we just set this up by pressing the record button, making sure we had our gun selected, and then of course just animating our gun. Okay, so once you have all these made, you're going to notice 3 of these right here, which are animations. You're going to make sure that each one is set to loop time, and you don't need to worry about loop pose because loop time is just going to run the animation over again. And of course, you're going to notice this animator controller right here. So this is automatically going to be put on your gun or whatever game object you're going to be using. So just keep that in mind. Now let's go ahead and select this right here and go over to the animator. So as you can see, we have a boolean called isFiring and a boolean called isMoving. Now your animator controller, if you're using a previous tutorial that I've used before, is going to probably be more advanced than this right here. So what you're going to do is, if you already have the idle and moving and whatnot, don't worry about these 2 right here. Say for instance, is walking or is not walking, stuff like that. But if you don't got this, just copy this stuff right here to where you drag your idle inside here, drag your moving inside here, and drag your fire inside here, if it's not already there. If it is, don't worry about that. And we're going to add some transitions inside here. So select your idle, make transition, and then select moving. Now, if you don't have these parameters, like I covered up here, make sure that you do press this plus key, and then add these as booleans, and then just name them. So from idle to moving, we're going to take has exit time off, and we're going to set is firing is equal to false, is moving is equal to true. And of course, we're going to do vice versa for moving back to idle. And of course, heading into fire though, what we're going to do is we're just going to put one parameter called is firing is equal to true. So no matter what we're doing, whether or not we're moving or if we're idle, as long as we're firing, then it's going to head over into fire. And if you notice the transition from idle to fire, it is the exact same thing. It's going to be if it's firing is equal to true, then it goes to that. And of course, we have the same concept for if it's not, if it goes back to idle, is firing is equal to false, is moving is equal to false. And of course, I made sure that has exit time is on. And of course, same thing that goes to fire to moving. Okay, so let's go ahead and cover the script. And now there's going to be a lot of stuff inside this script that you're not going to be using. I'm not going to actually put this inside the, how would I put it, comment section below, mainly because this right here is very easy to copy. So let's go and roll down to where that is. So if you notice right here, we basically are going to set up a couple things. So at the way top, we're going to create pretty much just, let's see, where are we? Okay, right here. So you're going to create a public animator called gun animator. Now, you could have this reticle animator if you want to. You just do the same process that you did with the gun animator. And then, of course, you just create that for the reticle. Now, right now we're working with the gun animator, so we're just going to do gun animator. Roll down. And make sure on the gun animator, you don't need to actually go over here and put a reference to this because it is a public animator in comparison to it being a private animator or just being an animator. So the reason why we're not going to be going into the void start function to grab this is because we're grabbing it immediately from that game object. So just keep that in mind. A public animator, you don't need to get the component because it's already being got in comparison to just having to find it. Okay, so we're going to roll back down to where we were. If I can find it. Okay, so what you're going to do with the movement system. Now this is of course set for if we're moving. This is a little method that I learned how to set up for if we're just going to be moving continuously from any direction. Then we're going to be setting this current movement system to going. So take a look at this. If input get axis vertical is greater than 0. So say for instance if we're pressing W, S, up or down, or input dot get axis vertical is less than 0. So like I said, all the axes. And then of course we're going to be using the horizontal axis as well. And like I said, this right here, this little dot, it's like right underneath the backspace key. That stands for OR. So if any of these are pressed, then we're going to set gun animator dot set bool is moving is equal to true. That way we're going to be saying we're moving, which means that if we're moving, then of course we're going to set the animator to moving. Otherwise, it's going to be equal to false, which is pretty cool. That way we cover everything all in one motion, so we don't have to worry about just setting this up to where vertical is greater than 0, else if vertical is less than 0. We just cover it all in one spot. Okay, so that covers that right there. Now this of course sets the gun animation for firing. So if you notice we have if input.get mouse button up, and of course we have this little dash, and you're going to notice this is 0. So how these buttons work is 0 is your left mouse button, 2 is going to, I mean 1 is going to be your right mouse button, and then 2 is going to be your middle mouse button or your scrolling mouse button. So to keep that in mind when you're going to be doing get mouse buttons. So get mouse button up, we're going to say left key or left button. And this is where we're going to be setting our gun animator bool to is firing is equal to false. So basically whenever we release the button, it's going to say it's false. And of course you can notice this reticle as well. We're just going to make it equal false as well. Like I said, if you're going to be using the reticle, just make sure that you just copy the exact same setup we did for the gun animator. And of course we have get mouse button down. So as long as our mouse button is down, or whenever we press it down, it's going to start is firing. Now, if you notice, we don't have a get mouse button alone just by itself. And the reason for that is because we don't want it to just continually activate, right? We just want it to be is firing is equal to true. So as long as we're holding down that mouse button and we don't release it, then it's going to continue to fire. Now I'm going to quickly cover the reticle. I already showed you where you're going to put this. So say for instance where you put the public gun animator, you're just going to put the same thing for the reticle animator. And you're not going to actually add it inside the movement system down here like you have right there. You're just going to add is firing is equal to false and is firing is equal to true. Now let's go ahead and check this out. Now for this gun reticle, it's pretty much just going to be a UI. So public canvas, I basically created a panel inside this canvas called holder. So it scales with the screen. And of course we have the reticle. So the reticle is actually what we're going to be animating. So if I go over to the animations tab, create the folder called reticle, double click that, press the reticle, and go over to the animation tab. You can notice we have non-fire. It's completely empty because we don't want it to animate. And then of course we have when fire. So as long as we're firing, it's going to cause our reticle to increase in size. So make sure to press this record button. As you notice, we have it at 100 and 100. And of course, we just increased it to 125 and then back to 100. Pretty cool. So if we head over to the animator tab now, you can notice we just have is firing. So it starts as non-fire and of course has exit times off. Is firing is equal to true, it goes to when fire, and of course is firing is equal to false when it goes to non-fire and has exit times on. So pretty cool. Let's go ahead and check this out again one more time. And here we go. So as you can see, we're walking. We can hold it down. It's firing. Let it go. It stops firing. And of course, if you actually want to do this with the reticle, this is a really cool setup that I've done. All you need to do is just change the reticle to whatever you want it to be, different textures and all. It's really, really cool. And of course, there you go. As you can tell, it all works out perfectly. And yeah. Okay, I hope you guys liked this tutorial. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, check out some other videos. If you have any other questions regarding this video or any other video, please leave a comment inside the comment section below. I'll see you guys next time.